All right, Shalom. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rachakodash, the honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, Harubel. Peace and salutations, of course, to you sincere Akim out there pushing the truth across the four corners of the world, risking your life to do so. All right, and you sisters out there too who are listening and learning humbly in the background. Shalom to you. All right, and hey, coming into the time, and they're talking about giving out vaccines and all this crazy shit, and all this media circus stuff, which we'll see how hard they go with that and how strong they enforce it. But I just wanted to bring out a little bit from this book. It's called Medical Apartheid: The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on African Americans. Because we know, of course, there's no mate for the Bible, but you got certain books which bring out specifics, and it just shows. It's going to show you, the setup that they use to implement these different wicked devices, and come to Israel, sideways, and they're able to basically get us to roll with this bullshit. All right, because the scriptures say, what's it, Job 8:8? For I inquire, I pray thee of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of thy fathers. For we are but of yesterday and know nothing, because our days upon earth are a shadow. And like the famous saying goes, if you don't know where you've come from, you don't know where you're going. And that in the scriptures, one of the things it does, it gives us an origin. It gives the whole earth an origin. It gives every people on the earth an origin. All right. It gives every thought, every choice an origin, a genesis. And that's but if you look at our people now, they don't have that. So they don't have that foundation. You don't have a foundation, you can't build a strong fortress. You can't build a strong city. All right. Israel Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. All right, and that's exactly what's going on. That brothers are building themselves up spiritually before we actually go and build the physical city of Jerusalem. Build ourselves up to be the hope, to be the elect. We're the hopeful elect. But anyway, I'm gonna just jump straight in. It's chapter 7. This is the whole Tuskegee thing, because you have this chick Kizmikia Corbett. She's basically the face of the vaccine, and they actually did the same thing in the past with this whole Tuskegee Experiment. And they said, what really happened at Tuskegee? Which Tuskegee, I believe that's over in Macon County, which is right up the road from Atlanta. It's not too far. It says, and coincidentally, they're talking. I believe Atlanta. They're talking about reopening it fully. So, they got these different testing grounds, and this was a testing ground as well. It says, we now know, where we could only surmise before, that we have contributed to their ailments and shortened their lives. Right? It's the U.S. Public Health Service. And real quick, this is the U.S. Surgeon General, basically speaking to Israel as well.
You must go out, maintain 6 feet of distance between you and everyone else, and wear a mask if you're going to be within 6 feet of others. Wash your hands more often than you ever dreamed possible. Avoid alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. And call your friends and family. Check in on your mother. She wants to hear from you right now. And speaking of mothers, we need you to do this, if not for yourself, then for your abuela. Do it for your granddaddy. Do it for your big mama. Do it for your pop-pop. We need you to understand.
Right. Do it for your abuela. Do it for your pop-pop. Basically, those are terms that Jake uses. Your big mama, all this shit. So, so all of this stuff is a setup. You know, we got people talking about Bill Gates and all these other people with, you know, billions of dollars. You know, this is part of Esau filling his belly, man, trying to achieve his agenda. It says in 1932, the U.S. Public Health Service, because you're gonna keep seeing PHS, that's what it is, the U.S. Public Health Service, inaugurated a study of syphilis in the untreated Negro male. It says the Tuskegee syphilis study, right, was promised free medical care to about 600 sick, desperately poor sharecroppers in Macon County, Alabama. The study was designed, the PHS explained, to study the progression of syphilis in black men. Scientists had long claimed that the venereal disease manifested differently in blacks than in whites. PHS scientists decided to document this by finding a pool of infected black men, withholding treatment from them, and then charting the progression of symptoms and disorders. When the PHS lied to the subjects, convincing them that they were being treated, not studied, they lied to them. When the men died, the physician researchers determined to autopsy them in order to trace precisely the ravages of the disease in their body. And one of the things about the scriptures, it gives you the psychology of our enemy. It talks about how his words are smooth as butter. It talks about the subtlety, all right, and then the scriptures tell you what the wisdom is to give subtlety to the simple, all right. And what does it say? The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man foreseeth the path that he'll walk on. All right. So this is going to be something that's going to be huge nationwide, and we still got Jake, you know, playing around and into all this folly and games and selfies and shit. Hey, when that time comes, a lot of people are gonna run to trust in this man, and they're gonna be, you know, caught up in his experiment, basically. Also, it's interesting because that series Containment, which is also about a similar type of virus, is set in Atlanta. So this is all the all that predictive programming stuff that Esau does. This is all, it all revolves around the same subjects. All right, and this is it said, whereas the disease, right, among other things, the PHS expected to validate its belief in a specific racial dimorphism of syphilis, whereas the disease was thought to do its worst to the neurological systems and brains of whites. It was thought to wreak its worst havoc on the cardiovascular system of blacks, sparing the relatively primitive and underdeveloped brain, which that's all, you know, pseudoscience and bullshit. All right. It says, that the origin of the study was a benign one. In 1898, when Booker T. Washington, founder of Tuskegee Institute, met wealthy philanthropist Julius Rosenwald, founder of Sears, Roebuck and Company, they were mutually impressed. The head of the Rosenwald Foundation, who had a history of initiating self-sustaining black economic programs, had already generously supported beneficent research and self-sustaining industrial initiatives among black Southerners. He recognized in Tuskegee Institute a potential center of black industry, and in Washington, a man who could realize this potential. Right. So, you know, basically they came to Booker T. Washington. You know, they talked about, look, we want to fund this study. We want to give you this money. You know, we want to help you with all these initiatives, and, you know, we want to do some research, you know, dressing it up real nicely. And you know, this Booker T. Washington, we know that his father was a so-called white man. Now, whether he was a confusion of face or whether he, you know, Booker T. actually is a terror, you know, we don't, whether Booker T.'s father is a confusion of face, rather should I say, and Booker T. is a terror, you know, we don't know. But for him to go, you know, and make a deal with these Edomites, for them to come in and do all of this crazy shit and do the experiments, basically right under his nose, at Tuskegee, because he's the head of, Tuskegee Institute. That sounds like some Edomite type shit. It says, Rosenwald also realized that Tuskegee's promise was surrounded by the grinding poverty, public health vacuum, poor health, and rampant infectious disease of Macon County, and that this dreary indigence would stifle its potential workforce and limit its industrial growth. Together, he and Washington planned a Tuskegee-based program to provide medical treatment for Macon County, a system that began in earnest in the late 1920s, right? It said, by that time, slavery had ended in Macon County nearly 70 years earlier, but in name only. Except for the staff and students of the Tuskegee Institute, most of the county's 27,000 blacks lived the same lives as had their enslaved forebears. In 1932, 82% of its residents were black, and half of these lived far below the poverty line. Their median income was $1 a day. But like their enslaved forebears, they never saw a dollar from one year to the next. And what did President Trump do? He just gave people this little $1,200 stimulus package, right? The scriptures say a gift destroyeth the heart, right? And you got a lot of people after that. They're going to be open to ideas for getting this next check. Well, they gave us one before. They helped us out, We might as well just roll with it. It says, you have no idea what the fuck they're gonna put in a vaccine that they inject straight into you. All right, the scriptures speak about the herbs that were created from the earth, and because you have a lot of Israelites from the islands and from the south who they understand certain herbs and certain things like that, but a lot of them are associated into voodoo and all these different left-handed spiritual system, Santeria roots, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same witchcraft. And so when you talk about herbs and different things like that, a lot of people associate it with those kind of things. But that's why the scriptures, man, is the ultimate purifying agent for everything. It shows you the truth. It puts the light on everything. All right, the herbs were made for our benefit. It says, and these people were making $1 a day. It said, trapped in the usurious cycle of tenant cotton farming, they were chained by debt and forced to work the same land as had their enslaved grandparents. And you got a lot of Jakes who they lived in the same house that their grandparents lived in. All right. Maybe, their grandparents spent their whole life trying to pay it off. Parents did the same. They finally paid it off, right? Passed it down to the kids. But then now they found out, damn, it's a crack in the foundation. Damn, because the foundation of the house has to be redone, every so often. And then, all that money and time they spent is pretty much down the fucking drain. All right. Especially, the shit that this devil builds. It's the shit he builds doesn't last. It says, that's why the scriptures refer to Yahweh Shai as the rock. He's the cornerstone. But it says, these sharecroppers, they were forced to work the same land as their enslaved grandparents. And like Alabama slaves, they owned nothing, not even the crumbling shack they lived in. These sharecroppers, including children, were weighed down by 100-pound bags of cotton, living and working under the orders of white landowners, which kept them in economic thraldom by paying low prices for their crops and charging inflated prices for food, seed, and other necessities. And the servant, the borrower is subject to the lender. You're subject. Scripture say, well, we're gonna go to this man for the want of all things. It says what? You're gonna put your money in a basket with holes in it. You get a little something. Even that $1,200 check, for a lot of people, that money is all gone already. It says, especially if you got kids. He said those blacks who tried to flee the land were arrested, punished, and returned, or worse, just as their enslaved grandparents would have been. Beatings, lynchings, and murders that were never investigated enforced black serfdom. The strictly segregated schools were poorly equipped and sparsely staffed, and in any event, few families could spare children from the fields long enough for them to learn to read and write well. The only thing blacks had was a great deal of illness, but medical care did not exist for most of them. 15 of the 16 doctors practicing in the county were white, and although the overworked black doctor would see patients for trade, a chicken, some greens, whatever the patients could spare, the rest wanted their fee in cash plus $1 a mile. Yep, so the Edomite doctors, all these good white people, you know, who our people talk about, they wouldn't even see you. All right, and here it is, we're the majority, and so to say 82% of the county was black. Man, that just goes to show you who the devil is. And it says, and to this day, man, you still got hospitals, you know, nationwide, worldwide, where people know not to go, especially Jake. They know you go in there with a cold, you know, they might cut your finger off, or you go in there for a stomach ache, you know, they might amputate a leg or something. All right, it's just and that's just being wise, man. Especially now, you know, you don't want to run into the hospital now. That's why, you know, you have all this leisure time. It's time to read, time to study. The scriptures say, "Blessed is he that readeth." This is the time to build up your knowledge and understanding on different herbs and different self cures. And you shouldn't need to run to this man, especially when you got the Bible. You should be able to be self-sufficient, just like our ancestors were. I forget. It was one of the Maccabees, but basically, you know, when they were at war with Esau, it talks about they ran into. They had to run into the wilderness, and they used the herbs. You know, they understood the herbs and which herbs to take and which stuff to use. They would have used that to fight Esau. All right, then it talks about they came upon, you know, a wedding of some Hamites, and they took, you know, spoils from them. But anywho, getting back to this, it says. The 4 doctors of the John A. Andrew Veterans Hospital tried to care for the sick blacks who appeared at its doors, but they could only help a fraction of them, for their job was to care for the staff and students of Tuskegee Institute, right? And so, you know, Tuskegee Institute is looking real suspect. All right, and scripture, hey, this is part of the curses, man. This is part of the things that we were brought here to do, to suffer, to die, to be punished, you know, to be persecuted. All right, but then once, you know, you call on the name, once you return back to your heritage, the scriptures talks about those curses are going to be lifted from you, and they're going to be put upon your enemies. All right, and that's what we're seeing now with Esau. The different curses upon him worldwide, and they're trying to squirm out of it. Let's see, I'm just jump through to the important parts. All right, and it's a pretty good book. You gotta get this book, Medical Apartheid. It says then it goes in and talks about syphilis. You know how syphilis, you acquired it it's a sexually under sexual activity or from your mother who has it. You know, after so many years, it causes decades later. It causes neurological damage, blindness, insanity, paralysis, and death. And all these different things Jake had to go through. All right, it says, the U.S. Public Health Service stepped in, but PHS physicians never shared Rosenwald's goal of black self-sufficiency. The writings of his doctors reveal a lack of faith in African Americans' ability to manage their own economic and health issues. So let me jump again. And it talks about not all the men who tested positive for syphilis really had the disease. Basically, it tells you that people who were malnourished and exposed to the elements went shoeless and were prone to frequent injuries that broke the skin. Yeah, because they had to pick cotton. The cotton pricks your hand, and after a while, it cuts your hand open. It said the sort the cotton pickers experience daily were vulnerable to infections by pathogens that cause yaws. Unlike syphilis, yaws causes no long-term cardiovascular or neuronal damage. Right, so they were reading a lot of false positives.